AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. We veer into sports for the rest of the show today as Michael Brodkorb, who is, of course, a political pundit in town, has his own podcast, but, of course, he is also our Minnesota Vikings expert, and we have him on Fridays to talk about the week we just had, as well as the weekend ahead and the games there. Hello, Michael. How are we?
Matt, how are you? It's great to be here today.
I'm glad to have you here. You and I. Okay, so last week, here was our call. We said, I could see this being a blowout, but the way these NFC North games go, they always tighten up and it becomes a 1 or 2 score game every time. And how did we do that? I mean, that is nuts, man. That's exactly what happened.
I went back and listened. Our last episode was like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It all came together. It was unbelievable. It was creepy how right we were. And I mean, look at Matt. You and I are used to being super geniuses. It's
of course,
tough to be us.
Yeah.
But I mean, boy, oh boy, to broadcast like that and call our shot. We're geniuses.
We are. Well, I mean, the fact that you and I have done we so far. I mean, with procrastination and prognostication and stuff like that, that we've been able to go 4-0 on this season so far, and yeah, it's this team is looking good. Now, let me ask you a few things about this last game with the Packers. Okay, how concerned are you that the Packers were able to? They were down 28-0. We end up winning 31-29. How concerned were you that the defense did allow them to come back like that?
I was concerned and I was worried about it. I was watching it with some friends. My wife is a Packers fan. She wasn't there for part of the day, which is disappointing because I would have enjoyed that misery of seeing her suffer in our living room up close and personal, but I missed that opportunity. I was worried when they went to the half, when that we had that kind of screw up at the half.
Yeah.
And they went in, I think they went into the half 28-7. I said to some neighbors, I said, I don't like the momentum shift going into the half. And it turned out to be true. And I kind of went through this kind of grieving process that Vikings fans do, which is when we get something nice, we're worried that it's going to get taken away. It's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I tried to let go a little bit and just be like, look, just enjoy this while it's happening. It did get closer. And then we turned out to be right. I was a little concerned about that. But once again, the Vikings are 4-0. They went into Green Bay and they won. And what they've done here, there's always room for improvement. And so what I'm trying to do, particularly what I prepped myself for this show, was to try to do is be proportional in my criticism, but also be appreciative of where we're at.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you one thing that should make a lot of Vikings fans feel good. So they score, it is, I think at that point, 28-22. So they're now within a score. Now, what the Vikings have done in the past would have been this. They will get the ball, run, no gain, run, no gain, pass the ball for 4 yards and wonder why he didn't get 10. We kick the ball away. They didn't do that. They came on out and Darnold started to do something which we generally don't see Vikings quarterbacks do, which is pass down the field. We get that field goal. It becomes a 2-score game again. And I just sort of said to myself, dear God, does this guy figure this out? That if you get down like this, fine, you've got the weapons. Trying to play prevent offense is not the way you do it. And they got that field goal, and that was it. And then they were stuck trying to hope they could get an onside kick. And if you're at that point, more than likely it's over at that point.
No, I think the structure of the Vikings games, they're just being run better. And I think this team is clicking. And I think that there's been, if you listen to any sports show or us in general, go back and listen, there's always little quirks and things that we can talk about. But fundamentally, the Vikings are winning these games, and they're winning these in ways in which I think we're trying to search and struggle for reasons to be critical. Sure, they blew a 28-0 lead, but they were at home against on the road with Green Bay. The Vikings came away with the win. There's room for improvement. There's lessons that could be learned. And I have to say something to you. There's something that I'm doing that I've done the last 2 seasons, and this is just advancement in technology. Kevin O'Connell's speeches after the game are incredible to watch.
They are
just from a leadership perspective, just in how he messages to his team. It is really impressive. And I can't imagine the censors that would have had to be in there when, Jerry Burns or Bud Grant was giving speeches. But just to have that, there is true leadership in this organization. And to see that come out of and to see Kevin O'Connell after each game bring up some suggestions and things that they need to prove, but also handing out those game balls. There is something special happening this season with this Vikings. And I will say to you, it's coming. Obviously, there's players on the field, but a lot of this is coming from the top down.
Well, and you bring up that those are little things which really make a matter. In Detroit, then that game they had with Seattle, the quarterback was perfect, and the guy didn't give him a game ball because he didn't realize the how well the quarterback had played in that game. And I said, and he himself, knowing he had screwed up, the next day was like, I'm so sorry, I should have given him a game ball. Yeah, you should have. And, if you have a coach that understands these little things, the culture that happens there, it goes a long way. And you're seeing our team, when they need to flip that switch on, like they did in that Green Bay game, they did. Got the field goal, and they said, we got a game plan to win this. And it did not help. Green Bay, they've got some problems. That kicking game, and frankly, love some of those passes he threw. What was he thinking?
It was simultaneously beautiful to see, but also, I didn't feel bad, of course.
Oh no, not at all. No.
But no, it was. I'm glad to see the Vikings win, and now we're going across the pond, which I don't like.
Well, okay, so let's start. What is your go-to tailgating food? If you a main course of a tailgate, what do you do generally if it's an afternoon or an evening game?
Well, this is a breakfast game.
Yeah, that's because that's what I was going to ask. It's like you might do burgers, you might do pork chops, you might do ribs, whatever the case. What are you doing for breakfast?
So what I'm going to hopefully do is inviting my sisters and some neighbors over for the game to watch. Here's the challenge with me, Matt.
Okay.
I don't do well during Vikings game. I'm pacing. I go around. I don't when I go to the Vikings games. I don't eat a ton. I'm there like to host family members, and so I get really nervous. I'm pacing the room, going back and forth. I'm going to want to make sure that my guests at my house are happy. I'll serve some good food. I'll probably have a mix of good breakfast stuff. I'll probably have the girl going outside to help serve some things up. But during the Vikings game, it's a challenge for me because I just get too into the game. I'm antsy. I'm walking around. I'm yelling at the TV. I'm yelling at other people. I'm cheering. I'm crying. I'm curled up in the fetal position. It's just tough to eat when you're that emotional during a game.
You get your you get your steps in, huh? You get your steps in.
I will also say something to you, which I'm somewhat proud of to admit, but maybe a bit embarrassed. I was alone for part of last Sunday's game for just a brief minute, and my Apple Watch went off when I was by myself because I was in a loud environment by myself. That shows you how loud I yelled during the game. You and I were texting each other. I was getting updates on the game at Jay Cook State Park up in northern off of Esco. I'm hiking out the park there, and I'm like, the magnificent beauty of this. No, the magnificent beauty is we're up 28-0 at the Packers at Green Bay, and I was loving watching that as I enjoyed and soaked in the beautiful nature that is Minnesota. It was almost eerie to watch that game knowing how close you and I called it. Like,
God,
we should maybe consider gambling or betting or something.
No.
But
this is for us, man. This is the rest of the world can.
Amazing. No. It's just amazing how, we literally called the whole game.
We kind of did.
It was amazing to watch.
Okay, so now we got to focus on the Jets in London. Now, if the Jets were coming here, I don't think either one of us, this is going to be a stomping. But Is there something about the fact that this, quote, home game for the Vikings is in London, and it's really not a home game? It's a exhibition game where we're on the road for a home game.
Well, first of all, I did my homework in preparation because I appreciate these opportunities so much to come on. Vikings are undefeated in London, okay. And so I think they're going to do well. I think in London, I think they're. I don't like these games. It's just a challenge for me. It takes away. I understand the NFL is trying to grow, and I'm appreciative of the fact that the Vikings are an asset. They're going across the pond. But we beat Great Britain we beat England in 2 wars, and so I don't know that having the Vikings there is something should be a reward. I don't know that I'm excited about that. Yeah. But I have all indications I think the Vikings should win. But I worry about the travel. I worry about just the time change and that type of dynamic. But by all accounts, the Vikings should win.
Was the last time they were there, was that Cincinnati game where the guy missed the field goal at the end and we won it? Was that it?
It may have been.
Oh, that could have been, yeah.
It was New Orleans they played.
New Orleans, was that the game, though? Was it they bounced the...
Yeah, that was where their guy hit a 60-yarder to tie the game, And then they got in position for another 60-yarder to tie the game again, and he hit it off the upright.
That's right. All right. So there you go.
Right. Good call from the voice above.
He's 10 times smarter than I am on this stuff. All right. So Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, we saw last week, there's not a lot there. And unless the Vikings take a massive step backwards, I can't see the Vikings not winning this game. 2 touchdowns. I mean, I could see a 28-14. I could see that easy.
It's your show. I don't want to mess with the cadence, but we've done this in a very specific way.
Yes.
And I don't want to mess with the streak. Is that your prediction?
Yeah, I'll make that 28-14 Vikings.
Yeah, I've listened to our previous episodes, so I'm going to just say I agree with you because that's what's working. I'm not going to mess with anything. And then if we're wrong, we'll go down together, but I feel good about that pick. I think your pick is smart.
You can blame me. You can blame me.
No, I won't. I'm going to be appreciative of coming on. I'm not going to do anything to offend the person inviting me, but I don't want to. I'll accept it, and then because last thing I want to do is complicate this process because we've been doing great.
We are so far. I just, considering where this team is at, and I mean, we are not the only people that we're kind of impressed with what we're doing. I mean, the entire league is like realizing now the Vikings are a legit team. That win at Green Bay was legit. And these next 2 games, I think they get through these next 2 with this game, the Jets, and then after the bye week, Detroit at home. Right now you look at the rest of the schedule. This is looking really good for the Vikes.
Well, the way you said that, the way it sounded like the entire league was appreciative of what we were doing. And I think they should be because you and I are calling these games spot on. I do have a friend who has been pretty consistent about saying that he looks at the rest of the season and doesn't see a loss. That's something that you kind of alluded to. I think both of us would probably be surprised if the Vikings went undefeated. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but the schedule is pretty good for the Vikings the rest of the year.
I will say this right now. I don't see them winning at Detroit. I don't see them winning at Seattle right now. I'm not saying because that Seattle team is legit. They went into Detroit and really they got some good punches in on them. So those are the 2. The rest of it, I mean, the Jags, the Colts. I'm feeling okay about some things here, man.
Where does that leave us for playoffs then? Does that put us in at least we're probably hosting, we're winning the NFC. We're winning the NFC North. We're probably hosting at least one playoff game, but I don't think either of us are at a point where we're saying that the Vikings are the number 1 seed in the NFC.
I say let's get to Thanksgiving, man. We get to Thanksgiving at this point, the end of next month.
I love Thanksgiving.
We'll get to Thanksgiving next month. And at that point, we'll have a very good idea, I think, because those 2 games, by the way, that Seattle game, that Detroit game would come up after that. I think we'll have a pretty good idea of what it would take for them to be able to be in a good position. All right?
Yeah, just as I said before, Seattle always makes me nervous. And Detroit, I think, is getting a little cocky.
Yeah, well, they like to punch people in the face, man. That's for sure. And but the Vikings are punching back this year, and they're punching back hard. Michael Brodkorb, our Vikings pick for the week. Michael, as always, thank you. Next week, let's have you back. We'll talk politics, okay?
I appreciate the opportunity so much, man. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Michael Brodkorb, we'll take a break. Come on back. A little music when we head out for the weekend. It's the Matt McNeil Show.